Well, it's common knowledge that we're getting very close to what the Bible prophecy says, the last days, the time of the end. And we're talking about what the Bible says. We're not here to give you an opinion. We're not a rabbi or a preacher or a pastor. We just want to read from the good book what it does say. Now this might contradict some of the doctrines that you've been taught, whether you're Jewish or whether you're Christian. But all we can say is it's not our opinion. It is just what the good book says. Have you got any points to add to that?
We just have to let to be inspired by the divine work, and the truth will always resonate. So just have an open mind and we'll go from there.
Alright, well this is part 2, or it might be part 3, I've lost count. But I'll start and we'll just read from the good book. As we said before, we're taking the text from both the King James, the New King James, and the Strong's Stone's Hebrew Bible. We are now at, where were we? Isaiah. And this I've got...
Isaiah 4?
Yeah, verse 15. We put all the text on some paper so that we could read it without taking the time to go in and out of the Bible. In verse 15 it says, Yahweh will dry up the gulf of the Egyptian sea, and with a scorching wind he will sweep his hand over the Euphrates River. Yahweh will break it up into 7 streams so that men can cross over dry shod. Now, we're reading something that was going to happen the last day, so it looks as if whatever Yahweh has planned for the people, those that he's going to save, there will be a repeat of what happened when he saved Israel, where they crossed the Red Sea dry shod in their sandals. It goes, there will be a highway for the remnant of his people that is left from Assyria, and there was for Israel when they came up from Egypt. So it does say in verse 16 that it's a repeat of what happened back in Exodus.
Just like the universe repeats itself, history repeats itself. So we've got to look at history for where we go for the future.
Yeah, so whatever Yahweh, the Creator God, did before to save his people,
he'll do again.
He's going to do it again. That's what it looks like. In Isaiah 4 it says, and it shall come to pass that he who is left in Zion and remains in Jerusalem will be called holy, everyone who is recorded amongst the living in Jerusalem. When Yahweh has washed away the filth of the daughters of Zion and purged the blood of the Jerusalem from her midst by the spirit of judgment and by the spirit of burning.
5. Then Yahweh will create above every dwelling place of Mount Zion, and above her assemblies, a cloud and smoke by day, and the shining pillar of the flaming fire by night.
Well, I just realized there that that is the way that he delivered the people back at Exodus, because there was a cloud in the day, and there was a pillar of fire by night. And if you remember the story of Exodus, when Pharaoh and the army were coming up behind the people before they crossed the Red Sea, that shining pillar of flaming fire moved from the front to the back and stopped the army from overtaking the people and allowed the people to cross over. So it is a repeat.
And it's also, it was a light because there was no electricity at the time, so they had to have vision and so they could see where they're going.
Yeah.
So we have to bear that in mind as well.
So you can read that next verse.
For over all the glory there will be a covering. 6. And there will be a turbulence for shade in the daytime, and from the heat for a place for the refuge, and for the shelter of the storm and rain.
Well, you know, that's a little bit contradictory to being in heaven, because here we're still on this earth, being protected by a cloud and a pillar of fire. We're still on this earth, and we've got to have a place to protect us from the elements, the rain and the sunshine.
Yeah.
Now it says here in Isaiah 3:4, for the Israelites will live many days without a king or a prince, and without a sacrifice of sacred stones, and without an ephod or an idol. And it goes on further, it says, afterward the Israelites will return and seek Yahweh their God and David their king. Now, to my way of thinking, that's either got to be a resurrected David, or it's got to be another person called David, because Yahweh seems to always work by appointing someone to be king over his people. He goes on to say, they will come trembling to Yahweh and to his blessings in the last days. Well, David was alive, 2,000-3,000 years ago.
Correct, but also we've got to remember that every time when God worked, he always gave them a new name when there was a connection, and he worked miracles or did great wonders with them. So he also anointed them with a new name to be known by that from God and the people as well.
Right, what's it say in Isaiah 25?
Isaiah 25, therefore Yahweh Almighty says this, because they have not listened to my words. 9, I will summon all the people of the north, Russia, inverted commas, of the north, which would be Russia and China, and the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, declares Yahweh, and I will bring them against this land and its inhabitants, and against all the surrounding nations. I will completely destroy them and make them the object of horror and scorn and everlasting ruin. 10. I will banish from them the sounds of joy and gladness and the voices of the birds and the bridegroom, the sound of milestones and the light of the lamp. 11. The light of the lamp.
Yeah.
11. The whole country will become desolated wasteland, and these nations will serve the king of Babylon 70 years. See Daniel 9.
You know, there's something in Daniel 9 about the 70 years, so we'll have to go back to Daniel chapter 9 about the 70 years, yeah. Can I keep going here?
Yes.
Alright. Then tell them, this is what Yahweh Almighty, the God of Israel, says. Drink, get drunk, and vomit, and fall, to rise no more, because of the sword that I will send amongst you. But if they refuse to take the cup from your hand and drink, tell them, this is what Yahweh Almighty says. You must drink it. I am beginning to bring disaster on the city that bears my name. That's bring on disaster to Jerusalem. And there's another part in the good book where it says Jerusalem is reduced to ashes. I've read it, and I just hope that doesn't happen, but that's what it says.
Yeah, but we also have to remember that Jerusalem is a spiritual Jerusalem. It's not the physical Jerusalem that we know that is in the country today.
Okay, but it does say reduced to ashes, so you can't reduce the spirit to ashes. So
correct, so we know that is the physical Jerusalem.
And you will indeed go unpunished. You will not go unpunished, for I am calling down a sword upon all who live on the earth. So this is not just relative to Jerusalem, this is every nation on the earth. And it says at the beginning of that, at the end of that, it says, declares Yahweh Almighty.
And this comes from Jeremiah 25-27, you forgot to mention.
Yeah, well you can read that next verse there.
Jeremiah 25 verse 30. Now prophesy all these words against them and say to them, Yahweh will roar from on high, and he will thunder from the holy dwellings. See Isaiah 2 and Isaiah 11 and Daniel 2.
Daniel 2.
And roar Almighty against his land. He will shout like those who tread the grapes. Sounds against all who live on the earth.
There it is again. He's going. This is referring to every nation on the earth in the last days. Yes, the tumult will resound to the ends of the earth. For Yahweh will bring charges against all nations. He will bring judgment on all mankind, and put the wicked to the sword, declares Yahweh. This is what Yahweh Almighty says. Look, disaster is spreading from nation to nation. A mighty storm is rising from the ends of the earth. And in Jeremiah 25:33 it says that at that time, those slain by Yahweh will be everywhere, from one end of the earth to the other. They will not be mourned or gathered. They will not be gathered up or buried, but will be like refuse lying on the ground. So this is a pretty catastrophic event. It's a little bit like you go back to the flood when they were warned to go back to Yahweh, the creator God, but they didn't. And when the flood did come, the entire world and every soul was killed, slain, drowned.
For your time has been slaughtered, has come. you will fall and be shattered like fine pottery. 35. The shepherds will have now nowhere to flee, the leaders of the flock no place to escape. 36. Hear the cry of the shepherds, religious leaders, and willing of the leaders, the rabbi and the flocks, for Yahweh is destroying their pastures.
You realise there, where if Yahweh is destroying their pasture, destroying the pastures of who? The rabbis and the pastors, the preachers. Because the pasture of all the people is what they've had control over, giving them false misinformation. Yeah.
Like we've been given the false history and information to suppress us consciously and spiritually.
Yeah. The peaceful